Time. Let's talk royals. Well, last week it was dominated, wasn't it, about Prince Andrew? What did he, didn't he know? Was he going to be losing his titles? Was he going to be ousted from his home? Well, it certainly looks like he is going to be leaving his 30-room mansion in Windsor.
There are moments in royal history when the silence inside palace walls becomes louder than any headline. And right now, something extraordinary is happening inside the British monarchy. The gates of Royal Lodge in Windsor are closed. Staff members who once served with absolute loyalty have packed their belongings and quietly walked away. Not fired, not dismissed. They simply refuse to work for the man living inside. And that man is Prince Andrew. For decades, he was one of the most powerful figures in the royal family, the Queen's favorite son, a naval officer, a prince who moved through royal life with confidence and privilege. But today, the story surrounding him is very different. Titles gone, royal duties stripped, protection from the palace removed. And now, insiders are beginning to speak. One of those insiders is Paul Burrell, a man who spent more than 2 decades serving inside the royal household. He served Queen Elizabeth II, he worked for King Charles when he was still Prince of Wales, and most famously, he was the trusted butler of Princess Diana. For years, he was one of the closest witnesses to life behind palace walls. Now, decades later, he is telling a story that paints a very uncomfortable picture of Prince Andrew and how the royal system may have allowed his behavior to grow unchecked for years. According to Burrell, the problem didn't appear overnight. It developed slowly, and it began with something many families understand very well: favoritism. Prince Andrew was born in 1960, the 3rd child of Queen Elizabeth II. By that time, the Queen had already spent years balancing motherhood with the enormous responsibilities of ruling a nation. Her first 2 children, Charles and Anne, grew up in a royal environment that was extremely strict. Duty came first, rules were clear, discipline was expected. But by the time Andrew arrived, the family dynamic had changed. The Queen, according to Burrell, had softened, and Andrew became the child who received a different kind of attention. Some insiders quietly described him as the Queen's favorite. That favoritism may seem harmless on the surface, but inside a system like the monarchy, where hierarchy and discipline shape everything, even small differences can create powerful consequences. Burrell claims that Andrew quickly learned something important. He could push boundaries and rarely face consequences. Inside the palace, there were rules. Staff followed protocols. Appointments were scheduled carefully. Even senior royals had procedures to follow before meeting the Queen. Prince Philip, the Queen's husband, was known for enforcing those boundaries. But Andrew often bypassed them. He walked straight into rooms where others would have waited. He made demands where others showed restraint. And according to Burrell, that pattern slowly shaped the way Andrew treated the people around him. Palace staff, the maids, footmen, and aides who dedicate their careers to royal service, began experiencing something very different from the image the public saw. Behind the scenes, Burrell claims Andrew frequently dismissed staff with crude language. Commands were sharp. Patience was limited. Respect, according to several accounts, was not always present. These weren't isolated incidents. Burrell describes them as a repeated pattern over many years. Staff members would sometimes be required to stay awake late into the night for social gatherings organized by Andrew. Parties, dinners, private events that stretched well past midnight. And palace employees were expected to accommodate every request. Eventually, the situation reportedly reached a point where even the Queen herself had to intervene. Imagine how serious a situation must become before the monarch personally steps in to correct the behavior of her own son. But according to Burrell, even that intervention did not fully solve the problem. Instead, the dynamic simply changed shape. Andrew and his then wife, Sarah Ferguson, Duchess of York, developed a reputation for living inside a world of extraordinary privilege. Burrell describes their relationship as a partnership where both individuals reinforced their sense of entitlement. Sarah Ferguson entered the royal world as something of an outsider. She did not grow up surrounded by the same royal traditions, but when she married Andrew, she suddenly had access to a lifestyle few people on Earth could imagine: luxury homes, global travel, royal influence, and according to Burrell, that environment had very few limits. Over time, that culture of privilege became more visible to the public, but the first moment when the world truly saw Andrew's reputation collapse came in 2019. That was the year of the now infamous BBC Newsnight interview. Prince Andrew sat down with journalist Emily Maitlis to answer questions about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, the convicted sex offender whose network of powerful connections had shocked the world. What followed was one of the most disastrous interviews in royal history. Instead of calming the controversy, Andrew's responses raised even more questions. He claimed he had no memory of meeting one of his accusers, despite photographic evidence. He suggested a visit to a Pizza Express restaurant as part of his alibi. At one point, he even made the bizarre claim that a medical condition prevented him from sweating. The interview stunned viewers across the world. Public reaction was immediate. Royal commentators called it a catastrophe. Crisis communication experts described it as a complete failure. Within days, Prince Andrew stepped back from public royal duties, but the consequences did not stop there. Over the next several years, the structure of protection that once surrounded him slowly disappeared. Royal titles were removed, military honors were stripped away, official palace support was withdrawn. By 2025, the transformation was complete. Prince Andrew, Duke of York, had become simply Andrew Mountbatten Windsor. No title, no public role, just a member of the royal family living outside the institution. But the controversy did not end. Investigations and questions surrounding Andrew's connections continued to circulate in media and legal discussions. Reports suggested that emails and communications were being examined. Questions about past actions continued to surface. And perhaps the most striking development came not from politicians or journalists, but from palace staff themselves. According to reports, an increasing number of royal household employees have quietly refused assignments that involve serving Andrew. That is almost unheard of in the culture of royal service. For generations, loyalty and discretion defined the role of palace staff. They served the institution above everything else. But something appears to have changed, a cultural shift. People who once remained silent are now speaking. Paul Burrell's new memoir, scheduled for release in 2026, adds another voice to that growing conversation. His message is clear. The story of Prince Andrew is not just about one controversial royal life. It is about what happens when power exists without accountability. Because the British monarchy is not just a family, it is an institution built on public trust. Millions of people support it, celebrate it, and believe in the traditions it represents. When the behavior of one member threatens that trust, the entire institution feels the impact. King Charles III now faces that challenge. As both a brother and a monarch, he must balance personal loyalty with the responsibility of protecting the crown. That is not an easy position, but the decisions already made, removing titles, distancing the palace from Andrew, suggest the monarchy understands how serious the situation has become. The bigger question is what happens next. Will the investigations uncover more details? Will insiders continue speaking about life behind palace walls? And how will the royal institution adapt in an era where secrecy is becoming harder to maintain? One thing is certain, the story of Prince Andrew is no longer hidden inside palace corridors, it has moved into the open, and the consequences of that exposure may continue shaping the future of the monarchy for years to come. Because history has shown us something very important. Power can protect people for a long time, but eventually, truth finds a way to surface, and when it does, even the most powerful institutions must face the reality of what has been hidden behind their walls. So the real question is this: is Prince Andrew simply the scandal of a single royal life, or is he the symbol of a much deeper problem inside the system that protected him for so long? Let me know what you think. Do you believe the monarchy handled this situation correctly, or should the royal family have acted much sooner? Tell me in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring the real stories behind royal headlines, make sure you subscribe, because sometimes the most fascinating royal stories are the